Hey guys, it is showtime. We are in for another study hall. This one is an impromptu one. We did our discovery call yesterday at 3 p.m. at the scheduled time, thinking, all right, we are good to go. And for some reason, we thought we could cover Discovery 1 and Discovery 2 all in one go. That didn't quite go as planned. So I asked the permission of everyone that was here yesterday if it would be okay if we did study hall tonight. And the only time that we had available was now, which is 8 p.m. Central Standard Time and whatever time it is where you guys are. And I know some of you are in the land of Nod. I know some of you have already gone to bed. That is okay. You can rewatch this tomorrow. It will be both in the dashboard and here in Facebook in the units. I see Jennifer Tellish is here. Hello, hello. So glad that you are here. So let me know who's here and where you're watching from. I am just a couple of minutes late because my computer would not start. So we were getting everybody in bed, getting everything going, and then my computer just decided, yeah, I'm not starting for you today. And I was like, are you serious? But it looks like we've got everything up and going. It looks like we've got people joining from all over the place. It looks like Jennifer's here from Montana. Justine is here. She's got her snacks and she is ready. Awesome. Justine's here from Virginia. Danielle in Australia. And Danielle, tell me what time it is there in Australia, because you guys are actually, it's the morning, right? And then good evening from our corner. Alice is here. Alice, I hope your fever is better. I know you've been struggling with a fever, so I am really hoping that that is better and you are feeling a little better now, my friend. That's what I hope for you. All right, guys. It is 1 p.m. lunchtime. The video is a little glitchy for you. I don't think that's here, so you may want to restart it. Leslie's here from Canada. I love it. I love it. Awesome. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. If you have not been on one of these before, I am going to do my best to go through the lessons with you. I'm actually going to pull them up on our computer. We're going to watch Discovery 2 lessons together. So you can actually check them off if you are only at, if you haven't even opened and this is your first watch party to come to, your first study hall, that's fine. Stick around with us. We'll watch it and then you can go back. This can be your momentum to get you going and you can go back and watch the other lessons because we are here to help you. We are here to help you finish strong. And by finish strong, we do not mean that you have to graduate. Now, we would love to see you graduate. Matter of fact, I just had a couple of graduation announcements come through on my email, so I want to celebrate those. I saw Erica Birch come through, and I saw Josie Landon come through, and the others have already, looks like, left my inbox. But we've had quite a few. Let's see. I'm just going to go ahead and put it in here. I'm going to pull up some of we've got Cheryl graduated today, Cheryl Haslam. We've got Gullah Kali finally graduated today. So we've got 4 amazing graduates. Let's celebrate them. So in the comments, if you guys can give them some shout outs and some yay, congratulations. And then let's celebrate your moving forward, because that's what we want to do here. We want to help everyone feel like they are finishing strong, whether they are just finally showing up into the group and leaning in and saying, okay, life is crazy out there. What do I do to move forward? Or maybe I am just showing up and I am getting the support, so I have that support system. Or maybe I'm just going to binge the lessons and I'm just going to listen to the audio, because what I've seen in the group, there's been some amazingness happening over the last couple of days where brand new people are speaking up and saying, oh my gosh, life has been so overwhelming and I just don't have time to sit down and watch all the videos. Well, guess what? You don't have to. You can listen to the audio. You can download the workbooks or download the transcripts and just read the lessons. That counts as well. Our goal is just to help you move along. And there has been some amazing, amazing growth over the last couple of days, some amazing stories, and it's just amazing. So I would love to hear, where are you in the videos? Where are you in the videos? Are you haven't opened yet? Are you just starting? Are you in intro, foundation? Are you in connection? Are you in Discovery 1, Discovery 2? If you're at Discovery 2, I've got great news for you, because we are going to be filling out our Discovery 2 game boards. At this point, we have already been filling out our game boards as we're going. So we are on our 4th game board. I love it. Jennifer is starting Discovery with us. Love it, love it, love it. Justine's a first-time graduate. Love it. Tahani is graduated and now going through Discovery 2. Love it. I love it, love it. You guys are awesome. You guys are rock stars. I love hearing where you're at in the framework. Yeah, and you know what? I do see the video is a little glitchy on Facebook. Are you guys seeing that, or is it working on your end? Looks like, so Ludmilla has already graduated. She is at Discovery 2. I bet it was last night too. Weird, weird, weird. All right, we're going to do our best to get this working, all right? All right, let me get all of my stuff. Like I said, my computer just completely shut down on me right before we started going. Danielle says, I graduated. I need to do some more implementing and mindset work. Gosh, don't we all, right? One of the things I posted today, I don't know how many of you guys saw this, but I would encourage each and every one of you to go do it if you haven't. I encouraged everyone to take a moment and just reflect back. Look back at that welcome thread when we first joined 11 weeks ago. And I want you to look at it and say, and just read through it. And the person writing that that message of why you joined, is that the same person that's reading it right now? Is that the same person? Is that the same family? Are you guys in the exact same place? Now, you might not be where you thought you were going to be. And I shared this in that post that my mentor shares, that we so often overestimate what we can get done in a short period of time, but we far overestimate what we can get done in a long period of time. And just to bring that point home, a year ago, Calm the Chaos did not exist. 6 years ago, none of this existed. I was a teacher in the classroom, and it was actually in November 6 years ago that I set up a website, and I had no idea what I was going to be doing on it, why I even set one up. I knew nothing about blogging or about the internet. And if someone had told me 6 years ago that I would be helping people from 37 countries around the world from my computer in my basement, I would have been like, what are you talking about? No, I'm going to have a class and in my school, and I'm going to, I might be the owner of the school, and there's no way I would have believed you that 6 years from now, we would be where we are. And we would have a team of over 11 people that work with us on a day-to-day basis. And that doesn't even count all the extra people that help us as well. I just never would have imagined that. But just like last year, when we were going through like building Calm the Chaos and breaking what we were doing, it felt so slow. It felt like everything was taking just so long. And it felt like I just couldn't move fast enough. It felt like we weren't making any progress. It felt like nothing was happening like it was supposed to. It felt like we were making all of the mistakes. And we just kept trudging through, and we kept believing this whole thing that we were probably overestimating what we were going to get done in a short amount of time. And it wasn't until just recently we had to take a look back when I spoke on stage in front of 800 entrepreneurs about Calm the Chaos. And I had to take a look back at the last year. And I realized just how much has happened over the last year and how big this community has gotten, how strong this community has gotten. But I got to tell you, those first 90 days, they were pretty rough. I was breaking all sorts of things. I was breaking beliefs. I was changing my mindset. I'm still changing mindsets. And it's not much different than what you guys are going through right now. Whether you are a brand new person to Calm the Chaos and you signed up 11 weeks ago and you haven't even opened the course because life around you has gotten so busy, my guess is you haven't watched the No Time, No Problem bonus, right? And that is what's going to help you. It's what helped me be able to create what you're sitting in right now and still run a family and still help my kid who was struggling in school. And so I want to help you see that life is always going to happen. And honestly, like crap is going to happen in life and things are going to swirl around you. And that I can't save you from. But what I can help you with is how to get through it, how to pick yourself up. And that is what I am excited about. And we are about halfway through our study hall, and we are about halfway through our Finish Strong Challenge. And I am so excited because we have almost 70 people who have graduated. And I just cannot wait until the rest of you join us in moving forward. We want to help you get results. That's what we are dedicated to do. Right now, it's about helping you get that baseline, that framework in place. And then we can spend all the rest of our days helping you implement, helping you make this a lifestyle, helping you create a new life using the fundamentals that you've gotten during these 90 days. I love it. I love it. Teresa has started it. That is a huge win. She started the No Time, No Problem. Those of you who have maybe you're not feeling it, you're feeling just overwhelmed, go listen to that first lesson of No Time, No Problem. Hello, Evelyn. The more of us that work together, we make each other stronger. Yes, all these families, the world is going to be a better place. I love that, Justine. Thank you. Jennifer says, it sounds like I need to do that next. It is a game changer. Absolutely. It is all about finding what's most important. And if No Time, No Problem is stressing you out, go and find the 3 days to reduce your overwhelm. That bonus as well can just get you knocked out, get you moving forward so that you can make the time to listen to these lessons while we're all together, right? You guys are amazing. All right, I'm getting really excited. I want to make sure you guys all have a certain date on your calendar. So what is that date? I'm going to write it down right here. Let's see who knows the day. What day does everyone need to have on their calendar? Let's see if I can spell this late at night. It's a big one. There's a really big announcement, and we're going to be doing a lot on that day. What is our big day? Who knows? Who has it on their calendar? And I know if you're on the other side of the world and noon isn't going to work for you guys, then you're going to watch the replay as soon as it's up, right? As soon as it's up. We are going to try to get the replay as fast as possible. I was just talking to the tech team today. Let's see who's got it. I moved Making Turtles with my grandma to be there. Jennifer's already got it on my Outlook. No, not today. There's another special day. Another special day. All right, what's the big day? You guys have got it. Well, yeah, of course there's going to be a dance party. All right, you guys have got it. December 19th, make sure it's marked on your calendar. Make sure you get as many people there as you possibly can. We are going to celebrate you. We're going to celebrate everything we've been through together for the last 90 days. I'm also going to be sharing some next steps with you because many of you guys have asked, what do we do now that we have the fundamentals? Or what if I don't have this yet? What do we do now? What comes after I've gone through the lessons? Do I just keep doing the lessons over and over again? Well, we are going to have those answers for you and so much more. Plus, we've got some prizes that we're going to be giving away. And we've got the opportunity for you guys with a very, very big announcement. So you guys don't want to miss it. Don't want to miss it. You want to make sure you are there, right? Yes. Thriving has a nice roadmap for those overwhelmed, Justine says. I love it. I love it. All right, let's get this party going. To get that started, I'm not going to spend too much time here, but in case you haven't watched any of the study halls, I just want to do a quick review of our simplified framework because that is something that we realized was only in the workshop, the free workshop back in September. And so we know that that's something that many of you guys have missed, especially if this is your first study hall. So I want to remind you of this simplified framework, right? You've got the U in the center, you've got connect, understand, empower. On our first study hall, introduction and foundation module, we went over the U portion. When you're like looking at the framework, the only things you need to remember from you is this is where your beliefs, your intentions, and your anchors sit. So when you're starting with a new struggle, you need to think, what are my beliefs that are getting in the way? What is my intention? And remember, we underestimate what we can get done in a long period of time, but we overestimate what we can get done in a short amount of time, right? And then anchors, what is going to hold me steady when things get really, really, really rocky and really rough? And we've talked about how we need a sprinkle of each one of these as we're going. We don't need to be able to get these all the way fully done. You're still going to have thought monsters pop up. I still have thought monsters pop up today. I will probably still have thought monsters pop up in 10 years from now. They will just be different, right? Another one of my mentors says, new level, new devil, right? So when you got to a new level, you're going to have new thoughts, new inner dialogue, new challenges that are going to come your way. You're going to use everything as you go to fight those thoughts off, to change your beliefs, to set new intentions, and to make sure you are anchored the whole way. Then in connection, we talked about how this really comes down to effective communication strategies and making sure that everyone in the family feels like they belong, and then having that empathy, right? And that understanding just on like a empathetic level of where other people are coming from, seeing people for where they are and meeting them where they're at. I believe it was Sarah who posted and said, oh my gosh, like I'd like to say my son is totally different, but really he is not totally different. I'm seeing him for who he is now, which is the big game changer, which is amazing. She said now his behavior is different and he has changed and we are better as a family. However, it's that I see him for who he truly is and I'm not trying to change him. And that is what's happening here in that connection piece, right? And then the understanding piece is why we're here tonight. So we went over the first half of understanding. The big part that we talked about last time was about observing with no assumptions. So we're removing all assumptions and we're picking only one struggle. It's really, really important to focus in and not make assumptions, and then to unravel the behavior and to question, why is this behavior happening? And in Discovery 2, I love Discovery 2 because when you're in Discovery 1, it's all this like head stuff. It's like, actually all of Discovery is this like knowledge-based stuff, right? And I know many of you guys are my resident researchers. You read all the parenting books, you read all the research, you yourself, many of you are teachers and professionals. I know we have a pediatrician in the group, we have a therapist. And so you've done your homework, right? You know the research, but so often it's hard to know, like, where does this fit? And how does this fit my unique kid? And how do I apply this to my kid? That's what I love about Discovery, because it's the head stuff, but it's applied to your unique child. And after Discovery 1, sometimes people can get stuck. We talked about this last night, and I want to make sure everyone else heard this. But if you are in Discovery 1 and you get to the tracking piece, keep listening to the videos, even though you've got to track for a week. Keep listening to the videos, because you're going to hear something in Discovery 2 or in Toolbox or in Plan while you're tracking that is going to give you an aha moment. Okay? So we're going to keep listening. Keep listening. We also talked about, just to remind you guys that weren't here, we talked about a new circle of awesome. So we're taking, imagine this is like an animation, and someday there's going to be this really cool animation for this. But imagine this is an animation. Connect, understand, empower. These circles just unlock and start to move away from each other. And when they do, they become a circle that looks like this. So you've got connect, understand, empower. In the center, you're left with yourself. And so when you're met with a struggle, you're going to first connect. We always say that. Bring it back to connection. You're going to focus on that one struggle, what's under the surface, and then you're going to make a plan. Doesn't have to be a perfect plan, because then after that, you're going to reconnect, especially if things go wrong. If you yell, if you lose your cool, if your kid yells, if they lose their cool, if your spouse threatens to take away Christmas, whatever it is, you're going to reconnect. And then you're going to reevaluate what's under the surface. Did I miss something? Is there something else there? And then you're going to replan. You're going to kind of tweak that plan just a little bit, and then you're going to go back around again. So our circle of awesome, it is a cycle. It is not a linear thing, guys. We're going to be doing this over and over and over again with each new struggle. All right, who is ready to dig into Discovery 2? I know we did kind of like a fast recap for anyone who was not on Discovery 1 yesterday, but who is ready for Discovery Part 2? Let me grab my... So in Discovery 2, I really love this one because it answers so many of the questions of like, why? Like, you know that your child's behavior is communication, but what are they trying to tell you, right? And that is what Discovery 2 is all about. In this module, we're going to talk about fight, flight, or freeze, triggers, sensory connection, and my favorite, the behavior funnel. So we are going to dig right in to FFF. Let me get the screen set up. You guys are ready. Ludmilla, Justine. Justine's like super excited and ready. All right, let's move this here. Miss the PJ parties. This is like the closest. That's actually what inspired these, is the PJ parties. Okay.
All right, we are back for the second part of our Discovery module. In this module, we are going to dig deep below the surface and spend some time understanding why our kids do the things they do. In the first part of the Discovery module, we did a lot of the hard work by honing in on one behavior and tracking facts and finding clues. I promise you that all of that work is going to pay off big time. In this module, we are going to be learning about the 3 different lenses we can view all behaviors through to really cut through to the root cause and figure out what your kid is really trying to tell you. Because remember, all behavior is communication. In today's lesson, we are going to focus on the first lens, fight, flight, or freeze, or FFF for short. Understanding your body's primary FFF response will allow you to both remain calm in the moment and give you more power and control in stressful situations. In addition, once you're able to understand FFF response of the people that surround you, you will exponentially increase the power you have over behaviors wreaking havoc on your family. Honestly, imagine the power of your children recognizing how their body naturally responds to stress and what that will do for their ability to self-regulate and self-calm. So What is fight, flight, or freeze? Fight, flight, or freeze is your body's natural response to stress. These responses can be traced back to the caveman days when you had seconds to decide what you should do about the bear who was chasing you. When you're met with danger, your brain sets off an alarm, and your brain asks, should I worry about this or should I not? Within seconds, your brain decides if what is happening to you is a threat or if you're safe. Again, your brain responds, should we respond with FFF or are we totally cool and can go about our day? If your brain decides there is a threat, there are 3 different ways that your body will naturally respond. Your body will either start to fight, flight, or freeze. Little ninja tip, many children are already resting in the in danger zone. So the slightest threat will set off their brain's alarm and trigger fight, flight, or freeze, making it seem like they always fly off the handle for no reason at all. Okay, back to when your brain decides there's a threat. There are 3 ways our bodies can respond. Let's take a look at the fight response. When met with stress, this response causes you to fight your way out of the situation, kicking, screaming, meltdowns, shouting no, punching, throwing things. These are all typical fight responses. The next possible reaction is flight. The flight response avoids conflict at all costs. This response can look like running away, leaving the room, hiding behind a chair, or even locking yourself in the bathroom. Finally, the last response, the one that often gets overlooked, is the freeze response. The freeze response will shut your entire body down, leaving you without words or actions. This might look like staring, inaction, ignoring of tasks, or sometimes even going to sleep. When the freeze response is triggered, your brain is really trying to tell you, I'm not really sure if I should fight or flee. So I'm just going to sit here and wait to figure it out. You are stuck in limbo. Now, let's put some real life context into FFF to give it a little more dimension. Growing up, I had a difficult relationship with my mother. I didn't know it at the time, but looking back with this new FFF lens, I'm able to see that we both had the natural response to fight, which led to some pretty nasty blow-ups. As an adult, I was able to realize this and adjust my interactions and responses with my mother, leading to much less heated conversations and allowing me to interact with my mom in a whole new way. Now, fast forward to my relationship with my child. Because we believe in the power of teaching kids about their bodies and how their brain works, my son is now able to calm me down when I'm having a hard time, instead of responding to my intensity with more intensity, which used to be our vicious cycle. For example, when I'm revving up and starting to yell at him, he'll often stop me and say, Mom, why are you yelling at me? I think something else is going on here. He is able to recognize my fight response and reason with me to help me communicate my frustrations. That is why I want you to see the power in recognizing these responses now, so that you can be aware of not only how your child typically responds, but how the dynamic between you and your child could be affecting your relationship. It is important to note that FFF is not set in stone for each individual. While you might have a primary response that you tend to lean toward when you're faced with stress, this doesn't mean that this is the only way you will respond. Different levels of stress can elicit different responses. For today's purposes, we are not going to go in depth into the neuroscience behind fight, flight, or freeze. However, if you're looking for more information, I highly recommend The Whole Brain Child by Dan Siegel and Tina Bryson. They are my go-to resources for understanding how the young brain works. In the next lesson, we will dig deeper into the 2 types of triggers and how
I just have to share a secret. We just got Dan Siegel for our Next Step expert for February. So super excited to bring him in to help us understand this even further, just to let you guys know. Okay, I'm going to go back. I just was really excited.
That is related. But for now, I want you to focus on identifying you and your child's primary fight, flight, or freeze response. To help you find your next step, head to the resource section and download the workbook. There, you will find a few questions to help you categorize the behavior you've been focused on as fight, flight, or freeze. If you want to challenge yourself, you can use this guide alongside the behaviors you brainstormed in the first discovery module. Do you see a pattern in your child's responses? Does your child typically respond with fight, flight, or freeze? Can you take it one step further and find the primary FFF response for each member of the family and add it to the family success plan? If not, that's okay. Remember, progress, not perfection. All right, go ahead, download the workbook, identify FFF responses, and I will see you in the next lesson.
Woohoo! All right, so we have finished fight, flight, or freeze. Now the big thing here is many of you guys are here because your kids are hitting, kicking, yelling, right? And they are screaming, saying, I hate you. They're saying no. That is a fighter through and through. If you have a kid who shuts down, who doesn't talk, who all of those things, right? Who flees the scene, right? So that is flight. If you have, or shuts down is freeze, right? So you're looking at that. Could it be one or the other? Yes, it can, because it comes down to safety. And we're going to get into that further, right, Ludmilla? We're going to be talking about the basic needs and the behavior funnel. So if that first basic need of safety isn't met, then you might get sent into a different response. Your brain might be triggered of like, oh my gosh, we have to fight for our life here. Or it might be, okay, I'm shutting down. Like I am completely, my brain, this is too much. And so I'm just going to shut down completely. Right. So let's see what other questions you have. So anytime a child, especially a 1-year-old, is fighting or is struggling, 100% they have fight, flight, or freeze response. Even as babies, I mean, it is part of your innate brain response. And so when a child is 1, they don't have as many language skills. They're not as able to communicate their basic needs or their frustrations or their, whatever their wants. And so you might find that they hit or they bite or they growl or they grit their teeth because they don't have any other way to communicate when they're frustrated. Yes. Okay. So I see a lot of people are trying to find theirs. I'm curious. What is yours, not your kids? What is your natural response system for certain, and just like overall, let's just do that. Let's just do your natural response system. I know for myself, I am a natural fighter, and Jason, he naturally will just shut down. And this has meant so much for our relationship. Like being able to know that he's a natural fighter or I'm a natural fighter. Teresa says hers is naturally to go into fight mode. Fight. Now, when I am overwhelmed or I'm sad, I go into shutdown. Just complete shutdown. I will just lock myself in my room. I'll go into my bed. I'll cover myself with and I just can't move. I'm immobile. Like I can't even get out of a chair sometimes. So if it's anxiety based, then I go into, so it can be for different feelings. Different feelings can elicit different types of responses in your body. Cheryl says she's usually free, sometimes fight. Justine says she fights first. And then she flees. And that's me. I will fight with my words and all of that. And then when I get to a boil, I'm like, fine, I'm running away. And then I run away. And then my final is to shut down. Some skip all of that and they go straight to the shutdown. They go straight to the fleeing, and they don't fight. They fight silently. flight if I can't freeze. How helpful is this? It's fight and I don't like it. Anna, the minute that you recognize that it's okay, this is natural, this is who you are. Now you can start to kind of mold the way that you respond, but allow that initial emotion and trigger to come up because that's just who you are. Then as soon as it comes up, as soon as you recognize it, what are you going to do to then respond to it? And because you're conscious of it, now you can say, okay, I feel this, I don't like it. What am I going to do to get away from this feeling? Right? And that's where you're going to use your thought monsters and all of that stuff. And we're going to talk about that in the next one, in the triggers. If you guys are struggling to remain calm, a lot of times we focus on this with our kids, Discovery 2. But if your main struggle is that you are losing your cool and you're struggling to remain calm in the moment, then fight, flight, or freeze and the triggers are the things that I want you to focus on for yourself for a moment. I want you to pause looking at your kid and I want you to start looking at your own reactions, because the more you know about yourself, the more you understand how you naturally respond, it allows you to then say, okay, I know this happens. Now, what can I do to start changing that, right? So Teresa says this has been super helpful for her and her husband. They started discussing FFF last round, and it's become really helpful for them and how we handle tough situations. I love it. I love it. And everyone in Tahaney's family is fight, and that can cause a lot of tension. And so if you know that the natural is to fight, then you're not, I mean, more than anything, you're definitely not going to try to talk in the moment. You're going to try as hard as possible to, and you're going to find yourself, Tahaney, if all of you are fight, it means that when your kid back talks to you and it sets off a trigger in you, you're going to then fight with him, and then it's going to set off another trigger in your husband. And then now you've got all these triggers popping off and all of you are fighting. And so one of you is going to have to find a way, right, to be that calm so that it starts to diffuse everyone else. Otherwise it's going to just pop off like fireworks, right? Jennifer Von Verber says, I'm tracking myself, not my super kid this time, and I need to spend a fair amount of time diving into various situations and my responses and triggers. I love that. That is going to help so much. All right, we're going to move on into some triggers, and I've got some extra stuff for you guys when we finish triggers. But what I want you guys to do is right here, I want you to put your child, the one that you made your wish for yesterday, I want you to put their primary FFF here. Now, if you were doing all the extras, jot those down somewhere while we're talking and then go back to your family success plan, and you'll find that there's a spot for everyone to write those down, for you to know that and to share that with other people in the family. All right, if you guys ready to move on to triggers?
All right, guys, welcome back. This module is all about understanding why behavior happens. In the last lesson, we unraveled the body's natural response to stress, the fight, flight, or freeze response, causing the outward behaviors that are wreaking so much havoc on your family. We discussed the alarm system that goes off in our brain when met with stress. But what exactly sets off that alarm? And is it the same for you, me, your kids? Today's lesson is all about triggers. In the simplest form of the word, a trigger is simply a cause, something that prompts or activates another behavior. But in this lesson, we're going to dive into the two different types of triggers and why it is so important for us to not only understand triggers when it comes to our children's behaviors, but also recognize them in ourselves as well. How many times have you thought that your child is going from 0 to 100 in a matter of seconds? That their behavior just comes completely out of left field? You know, life is fine 1 minute, and then something seemingly small happens, and all of a sudden, your child just explodes out of nowhere. Well, I have a secret for you. Your child's explosion did not come out of nowhere. In fact, I would guess that your child has had stressors building up underneath the surface, building until he couldn't take it any longer and finally flipped his lid. This is why it's been so important for you to be tracking exactly what happens before the target behavior that you're watching. This is where you're going to be able to unravel the triggers that might be building up or setting off your child's most dangerous behaviors. Imagine what life would be like if you could recognize what sets your child off long before the outburst ever happens. I'm reminded of my daughter's last birthday. As we were planning the guest list, my daughter asked to remove her brother from the list. At first, I jumped to assumptions and I was hurt, wondering why she wouldn't include him. But when I asked her, she simply said, "Mom, it's going to be in a loud place with lots of children and lots of movement. And when you add all of those things together, Eli has a really hard time." My daughter, at 5 years old, already recognizes her brother's triggers and makes a plan ahead of time so that he can be successful. How cool is that? That is what I want for you and your super kids. There are 2 types of triggers that I want you to be aware of: lava triggers and snap triggers. I want you to think of lava triggers like a volcano building up below the surface and eventually erupting. Lava triggers can take shape in the form of feelings, sensory input, memories, frustration, change in plans, just to name a few. We're going to go more in depth in these triggers later on in the module, but for now, I want you to be aware of what they look like. Typically, just one of the above is not going to set your child off. But when compounded together and layered on top of each other over time, it can set off an enormous response. Think of a soda can. If you were to shake that soda can up and just set it on the counter, nothing would happen. You wouldn't be able to tell that soda can from another soda can that's never been touched until you go to open it. Now, what if you took that shaken up soda can and you put it inside of your backpack for the day, and it got jostled around as you got in and out of the car, as you went to the grocery store, and as you set the bag on the floor when you got home? All day long, the soda is just sitting inside of this bag, getting agitated while the pressure builds up. Then, at the end of the night, you sit down at the table, grab your soda can, put it on the table, and go to open it. I don't think I have to tell you what is going to happen when you open that can. Let's just say, I hope you aren't wearing your Sunday best. This is no different than lava triggers. Think of the last time you washed your cool with your child. It probably wasn't that one instance that made you blow up, but instead, it was the lack of sleep you had 3 nights before. Then there's that new deadline that got placed on you at work. Then your youngest child has been teething and has been really clingy. And then your spouse calls and tells you that they're going to be home late from work, leaving you with all the children to fend for yourself. And then finally, your kids have an argument. And then in the moment, it feels like your anger and frustration comes out of absolutely nowhere, leaving you to feel guilty for not being able to remain calm and patient, when really, you're forgetting all the things that have been building up to this moment. At first glance, it can appear that lava triggers can be hard to detect. But I assure you, the more that you work through the framework and look at behaviors as communication, you are going to start to notice more and more lava triggers so that you can make a plan to diffuse them before they blow up. Now, on the flip side, there's another type of trigger called snap triggers. A snap trigger is an automatic response that happens when you're met with a certain situation. The easiest way to describe a snap trigger is to think of an old oak tree that's in my backyard. It's sturdy, it's solid, and then one day an entire branch just snaps and falls to the ground. Same could be true for snap triggers. Everything is fine and things feel completely normal, and then all of a sudden you're met with a certain smell, sound, memory, sensation, and you're suddenly snapped into fight, flight, or freeze. For my son, pain is a snap trigger. The minute that he experiences any sort of pain, even just a simple, unexpected touch, he comes out fighting. It's an automatic response. Similarly, my husband Jason has a snap trigger that results in fights every single time. He has extremely sensitive ears, so if a kid walks up and screams "Papa" in his ears, he responds in an angry way. Because we know both of these snap triggers in our family, all of us can interact with each other in very different ways. Everyone in our family knows not to tap my son without warning, and we know not to make loud noises around my husband, especially close to his ears. You might be wondering, but Dana, how do I find out what the triggers are and what kind are present for my child, myself, and my family? Well, the good news is you've already started doing the work, because in the last module, you started tracking the ABCs for every time your target behavior occurred. One of the first places to look for triggers is to look back at what happened before each occurrence of the behavior. Are you able to notice any clues that point to snap triggers or lava triggers? In the next lesson, I'm going to share a unique system that I've developed to take the guesswork out of figuring out what's hiding behind the behaviors and what's causing them to happen in the first place. Identifying and understanding triggers for the entire family can be incredibly powerful. But for right now, I want you to just focus on one person. Focus on the behavior that you've been tracking over the last few weeks. Head to the resource section and download the workbook. There, you'll find a series of questions to help you identify at least one trigger, either snap or lava. And in the next lesson, we're going to be looking at the root cause to this behavior. All right, I'll see you in the next lesson.
All right, so I know that yesterday it was really helpful when we described the DQA type of behaviors. So I thought what we could do is we could just make like a list together of the types of snap triggers. What are some things that you see that build up for your kids? Maybe it's noises or touch. Maybe it's activity level or time on electronics. Maybe it's the number of times that they have to change plans, the number of times they have to be flexible, or the number of times that they a friend doesn't want to play with them, or that they're disappointed. What are some things that just kind of build up over time, maybe slowly, maybe over the course of a day, maybe even over the course of an hour? What are some things that you have noticed are snap trigger, or not snap triggers, are lava triggers that build up over time? Let's just make a list together. Not liking feedback from parents. So maybe accepting it the first time. And then maybe the next time and the next time, and finally just saying like, quit talking to me, right? I know for my middle son, he can go months and months having help from other people, but eventually he starts to just blow up because he'll just blow his lid, and you're like, where did that come from? And it's because inside it's been building up for him because he feels like he's not being very independent. Siblings getting something, siblings getting into their things. Okay. So little things like that, right? For me, what happens is for my kids, it's not usually the first time there's a disconnect, but it's a disconnect upon a disconnect upon disconnect. All those things kind of build up on each other. So it might be, Flora played with her brother, and then Flora chose her brother to read a book to her, and then Flora drew a picture for her brother. And so time after time after time, finally on that 10th time, her older brother gets really upset at her over something really small, but really it's that time and time again, right? That no one-on-one time over time, overstimulation. Yeah. So like getting excited, getting riled up, running around, jumping around, tickling, laughing, all those things, jumping, can be things that build over time. Repeated interruptions. So having to restart or having to repeat themselves over and over again, absolutely. That can be stuff that builds up over time. Noise can build up over time. All right, let's talk about some snap triggers, things that are just a trigger immediately. It doesn't matter how many times it happens. It doesn't matter if it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're at the park or you're at the zoo or if you're at home. This is a trigger for them. So for my son, my oldest son, if someone uses a raised voice, it is a trigger for him. He feels very threatened and he will fight right back. Anytime someone says that they're going to do something and then they change that plan on him, not just, and I don't mean like, oh, we're going to go here and now we got a flat tire and we can't go there. I don't mean that. I'm talking like if there was an expectation already in his head and then something happens, that can cause him to have an immediate trigger. Someone yelling at you, a car ride. So every car ride immediately knocks them off. That's interesting. Someone taking something from them. Not getting sleep. Yeah. So for Jason, it is loud noises next to his ear. Like it creates like this, I want to kick you response, not on purpose. Making a mistake, I would think that probably is actually maybe even building up. Like the immediate mistake might. Being in the car for 10 minutes or more, being corrected. Yeah. So I would be looking at like, what is it exactly? Like what about being corrected to? So this might be a trigger for you, right? When someone grabs you, when someone touches you, right? Awesome. Think about what triggers for your spouse are. When your child yells at you, when your child lays a hand on you, when your child hurts you, is that a trigger for your spouse? And that's when they have a hard time helping you. That's when they have a hard time remaining calm. Looking at your spouse's triggers can be incredibly valuable. Looking at your own triggers can be incredibly valuable. So what I want to do right now is I actually want us to take a minute and I want us to do something that's not in the program. I want us to look at how to identify your own triggers. Okay. So I want you, if you have a piece of paper, go ahead and get that out. You can just put it in the comments and you can come back as well. Right. So first, I want you to think of who or what sets you off. I'm talking like makes you lose your cool, just sends you into a downward spiral that you can't get out of. What exactly or who? So like I said, for Jason, that is someone like making an extremely loud noise right next to his ear. And then that is my oldest hurting one of the other children. Those are triggers for him. Like it just immediately sets him off. So I want you to think who or what. So is it an extremely, and this is for you, not your children. Is it an extremely loud noise? Is it a physical touch? Is it being overtouched? Is it too many noises? Being excluded from an activity? Thank you for being vulnerable, Justine. I know these are hard. And I just want to put that caveat out there. Triggers can be incredibly difficult things to start identifying because a lot of times we push them away and we try not to pay attention to them. But our time from 2 to 6 is when a lot of these were started for us. And many of us don't even realize they exist until we start paying attention to them. Being overtouched or feeling not appreciated, not getting a break. Thank you, Tahani, for being vulnerable. When my son is throwing things like this afternoon, when I'm late, the older child hurting a younger child, a person would be your husband's ex or your dad. It's good to be able to identify that. Feeling not heard, overtouched, excessive whining. When I'm crowded or grabbed, when it's loud and I need space. Very good. Okay, so hold on to those. Now, we're going to get a little bit more specific. What does that look like and feel like? How does your body react? So what thoughts go through your head? What exactly does it look like when you're triggered? We're talking about not what does it look like when someone else does it to you. I see you, Kylie, joining in. Not what does it look like when someone else does it to you, but what does it look like in your own body to be triggered? Do you scream? Do you recoil? Do you think something? Okay. So what exactly does it look like and feel like? How does your body react? What thoughts go through your head? What do you say in your head? I feel like I've stopped breathing. My heart pounds, my head spins. One of the things that is when I feel not heard, when I feel not valued, when I feel not important. And it has to be pretty big for that to trigger me. I'll have all sorts of thoughts go through my head of like, what does it matter? Who cares? My mind starts to go and my face scrunches. I tense, my shoulders go up. I get into survival mode. My hands shake. I feel like I'm going to jump out of my skin. Sometimes I yell. These are great. Thank you guys. Okay, this next part is harder. Okay, so the way we're doing is I cry. Okay, I growl, I clench my fist. I have to take deep breaths. I overanalyze. My mind goes 1,000 miles per hour. These are all excellent. I say ugh out loud. Why can't they just do these things? I assume the worst, angry, resentful. I tense, my facial expressions freeze and not in a good way. These are awesome. Thank you guys. Okay, so first is the who or what. 2 is what does it look like when this happens to you? Like what does your body do? What do your thoughts say? 3, I want you to ask yourself, this one's hard, ask yourself, but why? Why does this trigger me? Which one of my needs are not being met? And this one's hard because it feels so real. But what is my interpretation? What is my story right now? Because the truth is we get to control that. We get to control. The initial feeling's going to happen, and that's okay. We get to control everything after that moment. So ask yourself, why are you being triggered? Now, this can go deep. This can be hard. For me, I didn't feel heard for a long time. For me, I have been in many abusive relationships. So if I, at the slightest sign, feel like I am in danger, I will go back to that. I grew up feeling very like combative, like I had to stand up for myself to be seen and heard, right? And so those thoughts, those old stories, those old paradigms come back real fast, especially when something's happening. Because I have been attacked before and not helped, because I lose the need to be able to walk away. Yeah, Cheryl, I would dig into it and see if you can come up to why. So when your child talks back to you and it triggers you and you yell at them, why? Is it because you feel like they don't respect you? Well, why does that bother you? Well, because my voice wasn't heard when I was growing up. And now it's my turn to be the parent and they should be listening to me. Right? So you have a story in your head of why it triggers you. You feel out of control. You feel like you can't control. You feel ashamed. You feel embarrassed. Ooh, this is good. I feel like I'm letting someone down. I have a basic need, or I'm hungry, or I'm tired. And you know, the thing that I haven't seen yet is I'm overloaded. My senses are overloaded, right? I feel unrespected. Yes, the feeling of unrespected, but why does it bother you to feel unrespected? Why does it bother you to feel trapped? Okay. So what can you do? Is this helping to dig deep? Okay. Now, what you can do to identify this, right? So Jason's coming out. I'm being all empathetic here, guys, right? You feel overwhelmed, believing I never get a break, can't get these things done, right? Our mind starts to just whoosh. But I want you to really think back. One of the best things that you can do is, right, like when something is coming up for you, think, why does this bother me so bad? In the moment, you're probably not going to. That's why we're all able to do this, because we're safe right now. We can be vulnerable. It's okay, right? None of us are triggered right now. Now, it can trigger some things. So we're going to get you out of that moment, okay? So here's what I want you to do. When you're feeling that trigger, you now know that it's a story, that it comes from your past, and you do not have to be your past. You do not have to let your past define you. You get to choose how you react and respond now, and now that you have brought it into your awareness, right? So what can you do when you're triggered? The very first thing you have to do is 3 things, and many of you guys know this, right? Stop, breathe, anchor. I'm going to say it again. Stop, breathe, anchor. You're not going to let a trigger go. You're not going to let a trigger go. That's not what this is about. Your body's natural response to that behavior or to that action or to that thing is to go back to that place, to send you back to that place where you remember someone pointing their finger at you and yelling at you, where you felt like you had no control of your own body. Whatever it is, your brain is remembering what is already ingrained in it. Now you get to re-ingrain something new in there and reprogram it, okay? And you're going to do it with stop, breathe, anchor. I understand, Kristen. Thank you for being vulnerable. I did too. I understand. Your kids are not your past. Just because you had these things happen to you guys in the past, it does not mean that that's who your kids are going to grow up to be. It does not mean that that is what you're raising. I know how hard this can be. And if you can identify this and you can really understand that your kid is not going to become what you're afraid of, you can stop being afraid of your kid. And your kid can stop triggering you. It's not your kid, but you can stop being triggered by the behaviors from your child. Okay? So, stop, breathe, anchor. You cannot do anything else until you do that. Stop, breathe, anchor. Just say that over and over again. Stop, breathe, anchor. And your anchor can just be, I am safe. If your why is because you feel unsafe, if what caused you to be triggered, many of you guys said, I feel trapped. No, I am free to do what I want. That can be your anchor if you need it to be. If you said, I feel out of control, your anchor is, I am in control. If your anchor or your reason that you get triggered, I'm going to go back up here, right? I'm doing everything myself. So your anchor can be, I am capable of doing all things. I feel unrespected. I am respected, right? You can do this. I can do this, baby steps, right? Your anchor can be super simple right now. It has to be simple. It has to be something you believe, something that you can easily say. And if all you know is stop, breathe, breathe. If your anchor is just breathe, that's fine. I'm okay, Alice says. For me, for the longest time, when my son was hitting me, when my son was calling me the worst mom in the world, when my son was calling me the devil, was telling me that I was awful, my anchor was, he needs me. That's it. He needs me. That was it. Stop, breathe, he needs me. Hit. Stop, breathe, he needs me. Stop, breathe, he needs me. Stop, breathe, I got this. We've got this. We can do this. You can say it out loud. It doesn't matter. Okay? But you're removing your attention away from the trigger. You are removing your your attention away from what's upsetting you. How often have you been upset and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so upset. He called me this. He said this. How dare he? I can't believe him. Oh my gosh, like, why would they do that? And you are just ramping up your fight, flight, and freeze. Like, you're just making it harder on yourself to calm down. So stop, breathe, anchor, and then move your attention away from the trigger and start focusing on the breath. In, out. That's it. And anytime your brain starts to go back to, yeah, but he did this, or, oh, but he doesn't believe in me, or, oh, I can't believe this. Stop, breathe, and focus in and out, and that is it. Stop, breathe, I can do this. Stop, breathe, I am safe. Stop, breathe, I've got this. Stop, breathe, we can do this. Right? Stop, breathe. This is going to be okay. Whatever it is, and you're just going to focus on that. And then you're going to take a break. And this is not easy to do when your kids are having a hard time. But find a way, even if it means moving back. Even if it means just moving to the side of the room, take a break and just stop, breathe. Okay? Stop, breathe. I am loved. I love it, Teresa. Okay? And then afterwards, when you are done riding the storm, do some quiet time. Whether that is prayer for you or meditation or some sort of ritual. We've been sharing about the 6-minute morning routine that we got from Miracle Morning from Hal Elrod. We've turned that into a 6-minute. But take some time for yourself so that out of the moment, every day you practice this so that when you're triggered, it is just natural. Does that make sense? Okay, I know this is a lot of extra, but it's a piece that we tell you about. We go a lot deeper into all the stuff, in Next Step, but we know that like in the framework, we tell you about triggers, we tell you about fight, flight, or freeze. We don't tell you about what to do when you are triggered. And so we felt like this was a really important piece that was kind of missing, especially when as parents, we're the ones that keep getting triggered over and over again. But I want you to remember that this is natural. Getting triggered is natural. Knowing that it's natural, right? So you could tell your anchor could be, this is my body protecting itself. If you are like really scientific and you want to just be like, this is my body's protection system. This is my body keeping me safe. That's all it is. And then from there, you get to choose. You get to choose everything else after that. Okay? So if you guys are ready, then I'm going to move on into the next one, which is the behavior funnel. Okay? Stop, breathe, I'm okay. I just had to practice this, Ludmilla says, right? Because she keeps getting interrupted. All right, so we are going to go on You can add to your board. I can identify at least one trigger for my child, or I can identify at least one trigger for myself, right? Now we're going to go to the behavior funnels. Let me go ahead and grab that. Funnel us, Dana. I love it. All right, let me grab my screen. There we go. I'm going to need to get water. I think I can hear the song before it plays.
Welcome back. I promised you that I would share with you the system I use to decipher any behavior. Well, that is what this lesson is all about. In today's lesson, I'm going to share a process when layered on top of the tracking we've already done, will take the guesswork out of understanding your child's behaviors once and for all. It's a process that I like to call the behavior funnel. I have found that there are 6 possible reasons behind every single behavior. But simply telling you that there are 6 reasons still leaves things to chance and guesswork. What the behavior funnel does is organize behavior and the reasons why things might be happening into systematic layers. We start at the top, where the funnel is the largest. By inputting the clues and facts that you've already gathered, you'll move your way down the funnel one layer at a time by using a process of elimination. At the top of the behavior funnel, we have basic needs. I have found that I can typically solve 7 out of 10 behaviors just by solving a basic need. These are things like food, sleep, water. A basic need that often gets overlooked is safety. Does your child feel safe and secure? According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, these basic physiological needs must be met before any other motivation can be addressed or looked at. This is one of the reasons why I place such a high importance on tracking when you are seeing the behaviors occur. Is it after a long period without food? Is it right after a certain type of food? Is it late at night or really early in the morning? Pointing to sleep as an issue, using the behavior funnel in our tracking guides, we were able to discover that my middle son desperately needed an afternoon snack. As soon as we set a routine in place where he walked in the door, put his things away, and grabbed a snack before doing anything else, the afternoon sleepiness and arguments almost melted away. Once you can confidently say that none of the behaviors are connected to a lack of basic needs, you're ready to move on to the second layer of the behavior funnel, which is love and attention. As human beings, we are social creatures. Our brains are wired to seek out belonging and connection as a way of survival. And yes, even introverts need connection. If you remember that 5-to-1 magic ratio, you'll remember just how important connection really is. Looking back at the tracking that you've been doing, do you see any clues or facts that point to the behaviors happening more often when there's less connection? For 2 of our children, we can track an uptick in behaviors directly to times that our oldest son is struggling the most. They are getting less one-on-one time, less interaction because we're placing most of our attention on their brother. For our middle son, it is not uncommon to find that an uptick in talking back, disrespectful comments, and overall bad attitude when he has a break in connection with his friends at school. A few great questions to ask yourself in this layer is, does my child feel connected? How often have we interacted? Have they connected with the family? Are they struggling with their friends? If you can rule out basic needs such as hunger, thirst, and rest, and you have cross-checked connection and the behaviors are still a problem, you can move on to the next layer, which is sensory. Because this is one of the most often missed pieces to the puzzle, we've actually included an entire lesson on the sensory connection later in this module. Think of the last time that you went to a children's birthday party. When you got home, how did you feel? There's a small group of us that might be energized by going to such a party, but for most of us, our sensory systems would be completely overloaded, causing us to yell more, lose our patience easier, and feel completely out of sorts. The same is true for our children. Using the ABC spiral, We were able to pinpoint that our son's meltdowns were happening in the morning as soon as it was time to put on socks and shoes for school. He had enough sleep, he had eaten breakfast, and our connection time was at an all-time high. By looking at his behavior from a sensory point of view, we were able to unravel that my son couldn't stand the way the socks felt on his feet, making this a pretty easy solution. My son simply doesn't wear socks anymore. He wears shoes that work without socks. Now, the rest of us have to deal with stinky feet from a teenager, but it's completely worth it knowing that we're preventing a near daily meltdown. The next layer in the behavior funnel is avoidance. I have to warn you, this is where most people start. We often think our children are acting out because they don't want to do what we've asked them to do. But if we jump straight to avoidance when trying to figure out a behavior, we miss the why behind why they don't want to do what we're asking them to do. Is it related to a basic need? They're hungry and they don't have enough energy? Or are they snippy with you because they feel disconnected and haven't had a chance to talk with you all day? So the first time that you ask them to do something, they're a little short and snippy. Or are they avoiding what you're asking them to do, like putting on socks, because it actually bothers them? With the behavior funnel, going layer by layer, you'll catch the reasons why your child is struggling with the action they're avoiding. This is the stage where you might see a child avoiding an activity because of anxiety or worry or a fear that they have. By using your 4 W's and ABCs, look for patterns that could reveal avoidance as the true cause of your child's behaviors. The next layer in the behavior funnel is desires. We've talked a lot in the past about our kids' superpowers. If you uncovered that your child's superpower is that they thrive on a plan, they seek control, love to be a leader, you might find that the cause of many of their behaviors is actually right here in this layer. When looking at your 4 W's and ABCs, look for clues that point to your child struggling to move from a preferred activity, something they love to do, to a non-preferred activity, something you're asking them to do. Are the behaviors more prevalent when you change plans on them without warning, or when they lose control of a situation? I think all of us are all too familiar with a tantrum in Target in the toy aisle, which is a classic example of a child acting out because they're desiring something. One of the most common times you'll see this behavior come into play is when a child has a plan in their head and we, as adults, come in and change that plan without warning. You might remember the story I told you about Carrie, a Calm the Chaos founding member, who asked her daughter to clean up, and then her daughter called her mean names. After unraveling the ABC spiral a little further, she was able to discover that her daughter wanted to keep playing. She had a plan, and Carrie tried to change that plan without warning. When we understand that desire is the real reason for that behavior, we can say something like, I see you're doing something that you love. I also need you to take a break to clean up your room. Would you like 5 minutes to play before cleaning up or 10? Let's set a timer. If you find that your child's behaviors are caused by a need for control, desire, giving them choice is going to be incredibly powerful. The final layer of the behavior funnel that gets missed so often is self. This is your child's self-awareness, self-esteem, and self-regulation skills. At this stage in the behavior funnel, you are looking for a skill that your child might be lacking. This could be a struggle with communication, self-regulation, executive functioning skills. If you've gotten to this stage of the behavior funnel and found that it's a skill that your child is lacking, this is actually great news because skills can be taught. We're going to be getting into that later in the tools and planning modules. But I do want to mention here that you'll want to check if the skills your child is lacking are developmentally appropriate. So let's recap the behavior funnel. When trying to unravel the behavior you're focusing on, you want to start at the top of the behavior funnel and go through each of the layers until you pinpoint the root cause of the behavior you're struggling with. And again, the 6 layers are as follows: basic needs, love and attention, sensory, avoidance, desires, and lastly, skills. As I mentioned before, this entire module is about taking a step back and looking at why we do the things we do. In the next lesson, we're going to dig into one of these layers even further, because I truly believe it is the missing piece that gets missed so often when we talk about behaviors or struggles. For now, I want you to focus on just the next step. Here's what I want you to do. head on over to the resource section and download the workbook, where you'll find a couple of questions to help guide you in finding the root cause of the behavior you've been tracking and where it fits in the behavior funnel. And remember, if you struggle to figure out where the behavior falls in the behavior funnel, post in the community along with the patterns you found in your 4 W's and ABCs so we can help you find your next step. All right, I can't wait to hear what you discover, and I'll see you in the next lesson.
All right, we are back. So the big thing that happens with the behavior funnel is people get really, really excited about the behavior funnel, and so much so that they start trying to behavior funnel and behavior spiral all the behaviors. And they forget that when we were in Discovery 1, there was one key takeaway. Does anyone remember the most important rule of thumb when using the framework and trying to solve the struggles you are dealing with? There is one really big rule of thumb that you have to follow. I want to see if any of you guys were paying attention yesterday, because this will get you in trouble more often than it will help you. Got a couple different answers. So Justine says, find your baseline. Jennifer says, pick only one thing. Kylie says, track. Use it with only one person, with only one behavior. Charmaine says, focus on only one at a time. Focus on only one thing at a time. That's it, guys. You have to focus on one thing at a time. I'm going to repeat that. You have to focus on one thing at a time. That doesn't mean focus on one thing at a time for one post and then 30 minutes later post another post with another behavior with a different behavior funnel. And that doesn't mean that 3 days later you post another post with a different behavior on a different behavior funnel. You're going to find your clues and you're going to get to the root of your struggles if you focus on that one kiddo or that one situation. So I know some of you guys picked sibling fighting, but you're going to pick that one thing that you're focusing on, and you are holding steady with that. You're going to create plans around that. You're going to create tools around that. You're going to create independence around that one thing. And then you're going to go back and do it again. Now, can everything I'm teaching you work with not going to school, not picking up your room, not eating chicken nuggets, having a hard time after school? Absolutely. But you have to focus on one. And yes, there's so many opportunities, but you got to keep coming back to that one thing. Does that make sense? So that's something that we don't harp on enough in the program, is that you have to focus on that one thing. Because if you don't, you will get sidetracked. You will get distracted. And it can be really detrimental. You'll feel like you are just like running in place, or you'll feel like you're backtracking and you're like, I thought I had this figured out. I'm so confused. And it's because you didn't do the whole system. You want to go through the whole thing, right? You connect, understand, empower, right? The whole thing on that one struggle. So thinking about when you're filling this out, it's going to be hard to fill out the behavior funnel if you're thinking of multiple things. So if you've been tracking though, and you've done a behavior spiral and you've done your ABCs, you should be able to go through and say, okay, it's because of this, boom. And you should, be able to go through each of the pieces. There is the behavior funnel, not this pretty version, is in the workbook for this lesson. However, we also have, I know it's really crazy, we will be updating it. So I'm putting that down on my notes. I actually, as we go through the entire thing, those of you that have been here know this, but I've been drawing different visuals for each of the lessons. And one of the things is the new funnel for this lesson. So it's in your cards. That's one place that you can have it. And then the other place is, this is a really strange one, but if you go to bonuses and you go to the fast track, the lesson on discovery has the behavior funnel there for you, and it has a spiral for you. I believe it has both. So just double check and see, and we'll work on that. So do all the modules with one focus after discovery. Yes, 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 and yes, because it's going to help so much. You can go back then and you can apply it to everything else afterwards, but you've got to pick that one focus, because remember, this is, I mean, we're giving you all the lessons so that you have your roadmap and you have all the things to choose from. But when you're solving, and you're not going to go through 36 steps when you have a struggle, right? Next time you have a struggle, but we've got to give you that basis. So can it be a combo? Yes, but Christine, we're not guessing. So that's another thing that happens with the behavior funnel. People will guess, like, I think it could be basic needs, or it could be connection, or it could be sensory. This is to take all that guesswork out. And when we do the deep dive on the funnel, the bonus, in just a little bit, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But if you're focusing on that one thing, you're going to keep taking your ABCs, your 4Ws, and you're going to keep running it through here so you can see, where are things falling? Where's that tipping point happening? Is it happening at a basic need? Is it happening at a connection level? Is it happening at a sensory level? So you're going to keep putting it through that sifter. And I'll explain that a little bit more in the deep dive. So we'll come back to that. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into sensory, because I know there are lots of fun questions about sensory stuff. And that one I could talk about pretty much for a long time. We actually focused on sensory all last month. It's actually the second month we have spent in Next Step focusing on sensory. Last month was on sensory diets, getting a sensory diet up and running. Okay, so let's go into sensory connection.
All right, guys, what we are covering today can get me fired up anytime the topic comes up. You see, we are digging into why behaviors happen in this entire module. And if we didn't cover this hidden gem, we could be missing a huge opportunity. In the last lesson, I shared the behavior funnel I use as a process of elimination to get to the true root of any behavior. And I uncovered one root cause that rarely gets talked about anywhere else: the sensory connection. I feel this is such an important piece to understanding why we do the things we do that it would be a disservice to leave this out of the Calm the Chaos framework. In today's lesson, I'm going to zoom out and give you a super high flyby of sensory processing: what it is, what it looks like, and how it affects your child's behaviors. And before you think, my child doesn't have sensory processing disorder, hear me out. Because once you see the sensory connection like I do, you will understand why I am so passionate about making sure every parent, teacher, and therapist understand this part of development. At its core, sensory processing is how your brain processes information from each of the senses and connects or integrates that information with what we already know about the world around us. The most important two words to remember are senses and connections. You see, sensory processing is our brain's ability to use our senses to make connections about what is happening to us, around us, and even with us. It is a process. It's a brain function, an integrated system of our body. Sensory processing is part of all of us. So, how many senses do we have? You might be thinking, Dana, everyone knows we have 5 senses. I mean, after all, that's what we were taught growing up, right? However, that is so far from the truth. In fact, there are somewhere between 14 to 21 sensory systems of the body. When I learned this fact, I was in disbelief. Many of these systems work as parts of our body and responses that are just second nature. So today, we are going to focus on the 8 sensory systems that affect behavior the most. Let's start with the tactile system or touch. One of the most known senses, but still so overlooked. The tactile system is all about touch. We receive information through our skin, from our head to our toe, and we gauge every sensation, such as temperature, vibration, pressure, itching, pain, all of it through our tactile system. If you take a look at the ABC chart and the 4Ws, you might notice incidents that involve the tactile sense right before, during, or after the behavior happens. Remember the battle over socks I shared with my son? After working with thousands of parents just like you, I can assure you that being touched out is one of the biggest sensory triggers for moms. Next is the olfactory system, or smell. We take in information about our surroundings through our sense of smell to help us gauge if they are safe, harmful, or even whether they are important to notice or not. It isn't simply about our ability to smell pleasant or unpleasant odors, but it's our ability to discern and recognize safe and unsafe odors, which is vital in helping us regulate our sensory systems. Think about how a scent can transform you and help you remember an important time or place, just as it can change your mood in an instant. Whether it's your grandmother's perfume or the smell of fresh baked cookies, I am sure you can see how smell plays such a vital role in our lives. Next is the gustatory sense, or your sense of taste. This is our body's ability to sense the world around us through our mouths. This sense helps with our ability to chew, swallow, and even communicate. Have you ever noticed that your child gets a little bit more calm when they're chewing gum? I know I'm able to focus more when I have something to chew on. Next is the auditory sense, or hearing. This is our body's ability to process sounds and gather information from our surroundings. It isn't simply about our ability to hear, but our ability to listen and interact with the sounds in our environment to make sense of what we hear. Think about how music can completely calm your body, or how hearing a siren can instantly put you on alert. This sense also comes into play a lot when we have children who appear to not be listening when we talk to them. They can be struggling to process what you're saying, even if they can hear you. Next is the visual sense, or sight. Through our eyes, we perceive the world using our sense of sight. It is our body's way of taking in information about our surroundings to help us gauge if they are safe, harmful, or even whether they're important to notice or not. Think about how you use your visual sense on a daily basis. Do you prefer a cluttered workspace, or are you a neat freak? Do you organize your closet by color, or do you just throw everything in a pile? Once we understand our visual sense, we can recognize and understand how so many aspects of our lives are affected. Now that we've covered the 5 senses that most people know about, I want to share 3 senses that are vital in understanding behavior. The first is the vestibular sense, or your sense of balance. The vestibular sense includes our ability to move through space, and sometimes more importantly, whether we like or dislike those movements. Think of activities like spinning, turning, flipping, and climbing. Those are all vestibular activities. In fact, I like to call this the roller coaster sense. There are 2 types of people, those that love roller coasters and those that hate them. Which are you? Which is your child? If you were to look at the behaviors you listed in your initial brainstorm, how many would fall into the category of spinning, climbing, flipping upside down, or movement? Does this give you any new insight into those behaviors? Next is the proprioceptive sense, or body awareness. This is our body's ability to know where we are in relationship to our surroundings. This is the ability to walk through a dark room without running into your bed. Maybe you're a daredevil that loves skydiving, bumper cars, or wrestling. Or maybe you're the opposite, feeling like you have 2 left feet and you constantly bump into things. Little ninja tip. When in doubt, when it comes to your child's needs, give them more proprioceptive input. Deep pressure, tight hugs, jumping, pushing. These can do wonders for resetting the brain and calming the body. Don't worry too much about this part right now, because we will talk more about this in the tools module. Finally, I want to share about the interoceptive system, or your internal body cues. This system is so often overlooked, but it plays a major role in our lives, so it's vital to understand. The easiest way to think of this sense is to see it as gut feelings, the internal cues that tell you when you're hungry, thirsty, or tired. It also helps you notice if you are anxious, overwhelmed, stressed, and so many other feelings. It even tells you whether or not you need to go to the bathroom. Think about the effects on your child's behaviors if they can't recognize these internal cues. Remember, sensory processing is a process. It's what happens in the brain and how our body interprets the information from our senses. Can you see how this could affect your child's behaviors and triggers? If you're looking for more information on sensory processing, my book, Sensory Processing 101, takes a deeper look at each of these senses and helps identify red flags or worrisome sensory triggers to look out for. For now, I want you to simply focus on making the connection between the behaviors you're tracking and the sensory needs connected. All right, your next step. Head to the resource section and download the workbook. There, you will find a sensory preference checklist you can use to identify not only your sensory preferences, but for your child and the other members of your family. I am excited to see what connection you see between the behavior and sensory preferences. All right, I will see you in the next lesson.
All right. I saw already so many aha moments in the comments, right? Of, oh my goodness, my kid really struggles with interoception, with being able to recognize his own body cues. Guys, this is impulse control as well. So if your kids struggle with impulse control, how many of those of you guys have kids who struggle with that, with self-regulation and impulse control? That's your kiddo, right? So and I see so often people saying like, my kid's this and my kid's that. Guys, we have all of it. All of us. We all have multiple senses. We all have unique sensory preferences. We like this, we don't like this. We seek out this, we don't seek that out. We avoid this. And so it is really, really important for each of you guys to recognize at least 3 things that your kids seek out and your kids avoid. And so if you're filling out your game board, put the top 3 things that you just know. My kid is constantly moving. My kid seeks out vestibular movement. So it's not just one thing that sums up your whole kid. Your kid is unique. And so I'm going to actually push you a little further, Tahani, instead of my kid is this or my kid is that, right? It is, my kid loves deep squeezes, so proprioceptive. My kid does not like spinning. Someone said that car rides trigger them. My kid struggles with vestibular input. My kid does not like vestibular input. So you're going to put that in there, right? These are huge insights into your kids' behaviors and what is happening. This is what is different about CTC. There is only one other program out there that I know of that talks about sensory as an aspect of parenting. This is huge, guys. This is huge. This is missed so often in parenting programs because it's reserved for people who are dealing with kids that are, that have special needs or have diagnoses. Your kid, you, with no diagnosis, can have their own unique preferences, likes, dislikes. So that is super important. That's the piece you need to remember about the sensory connection. So many people pass over this piece. So many people. Okay. All right. So are we ready to move into the iceberg theory? I know that's one that we talk about a lot. I didn't see any main questions here, and people don't really get stopped up except for thinking that sensory is for one or the other, or it's one kid that struggles, not both. And I'd get really specific, not just avoids olfactory, but what kind of smells set them off? What kind of tactile input sets them off? What kind of oral input sets them off? Get really specific. The more specific you can get, the more you're going to know about your kids, right? All right. I'm going to move on to the iceberg theory. You should be checking those off. We just have one more video to officially watch, and then we're going to watch our bonus video.
All right, guys, we are almost ready to wrap up the meaty discovery module. We've covered a ton in a very short amount of time. In just 12 lessons, we packed in as much as we possibly could share about understanding the behaviors that are wreaking havoc on your family. We started by honing in on one behavior, and trust me, I know how hard this is when there are so many plaguing your family right now, but you trusted the process, picked a behavior, and created one wish to focus on while we go through the Calm the Chaos framework. You took the time to find your baseline and find facts and clues so you could remove all emotion from the behaviors and look at them with a scientific lens. But here's the thing, that was just the tip of the iceberg. The behaviors you were seeing on the outside and the details surrounding them were merely a sliver of what was really going on. So in this module, we dug deep. We took a look at why behavior happens, how your body responds to stress with the fight, flight, or freeze response, and we started to look at triggers that could be building up under the surface. I would like to wrap up this module by reminding you of the iceberg theory. While this theory is at the core of the Calm the Chaos program, and I am quite certain you are familiar with it, I thought now would be a great time to review what it is and how it relates to the analyzing phase of the Calm the Chaos framework and Circle of Awesome. It is one of my missions in life to show the world that there is more to people than meets the eye. And that starts with seeing that there's more to our kids than just the behavior we see on the outside. It's important to remember when our child hits us, screams I hate you, refuses to clean up, or has a meltdown, that something more is going on below the surface. In fact, if you recall, this is where you can use the behavior funnel to categorize and identify what could be hiding under the surface of the behavior you're struggling with most. I'm reminded of something my oldest son once said to me after a meltdown at school. I just wish people knew that my anger and meltdowns are just a tiny sliver of who I really am. I would give anything for them to be patient and take the time to see the whole me. In the foundation module, we took a look at the surface monster that will tempt you to look only at the above the surface behaviors, such as hitting, kicking, spitting, meltdown, screaming, crying, talking back, refusing to go to school, punching the wall, not listening, refusing to do what's asked, and we take them as face value. The key here is that if we just address the behavior, we would barely scratch the surface of the true problem. Eventually, the behavior would surface again and possibly be worse than it was to begin with. Now, for the next step of this lesson, I want to do something a little different. I want you to take a pause and take a deep breath, and then pat yourself in the back. We are halfway through the program, and you have worked hard to get where you are. Take a moment today to look back at where you started and how far you've come. Don't let the gap monster steal your joy. Take a look back and celebrate the small steps you've taken to get here today. Finally, head to the resource section and download today's workbook. Use this time to review what you've discovered about your child, yourself, your family, and add the under the surface discoveries to your family success plan. In the next module, we will finally be building the toolkit you've been asking for all along. I can't wait. I'll see you in the next module.
Okay, did you guys all pat yourself on the back? Because you're supposed to. You're supposed to give yourself a great big pat on the back because we are halfway through our study halls. We are halfway through the framework. Each of you guys that have been showing up on these study halls, you are halfway through. even if your game boards are not filled out, that is okay. You guys are amazing. I am so proud of each and every one of you guys, because I know I've seen a lot of you guys on each of these. I've also seen some brand new people showing up, some of you that are not graduated yet. So I love it. I love that you're moving forward. And I know Jennifer Von Verber wasn't at Discovery yet, and this was her way of moving forward. Jessica Jorgensen, I know this is something that you're moving forward, or you already graduated. I'm not sure. But you guys, it's amazing seeing you graduate. It's amazing seeing you guys make progress no matter where you are. So we've got one more video, and then we'll do our closeout like we do on all of these videos. You guys can go to bed or go enjoy your day, depending on where you are in the world. But I want to do that deep dive for the behavior funnel. So I'm going to go ahead and pull my my computer back up, my screen back up. And this came from our retreat this last summer, where we dug deep into and kind of did a live action on that behavior funnel.
So these are your unmet needs. We have got in this jar, we've got your basic needs. In this jar, we have got your connection. In this jar, we have your sensory needs. In here, your sunflower seeds. Those are your avoidance, you're avoiding things. This is your desires, and here are your skills. All right. So it'd be nice if unmet needs looked like that, right? Like all separated out, so pretty. That is not how it looks, is it, right? So instead, so instead of having the needs all organized, all pretty like this, like our kids are just like, Mom, I need sensory needs, right? That's our goal, right? Our goal is that they could tell us that. I have executive functioning skills. Like, can you imagine your 3-year-old saying that? I really just want to play on the iPad. They'll tell you that. But they might not tell you why. They might not know why. All right. So what happens is you end up with some basic needs. A little bit of that in there. There's quite a bit of that in there. You end up with some needs for connection, sensory, some avoidance. Probably a lot of avoidance in there, right? Desires. I feel like electronics time gets like 3 spoons. And then we've got some skills, and we've got different kinds of skills. So there's different kinds of pasta in our skills jar. And even if it looked like this, it would feel really good, right? It's at least layered. It's nice and pretty. We can just go through it so simply. We can just say, okay, we're going to go through basic needs. Just like I said up there, it sounds so simple, right? But that's not what it looks like, right? It's all taken up. And it's had years of experience and years of fighting and years of just mishaps and misconnections. And then you end up with that. And how are you supposed to figure out what the need is that's not being met? Seems impossible. So that is why we have the funnel, why we created the funnel. And I spent a lot of time figuring out this funnel. Where can I suppose it? Well, it doesn't go. What? Where'd it go? It was right here. Oh, I remember now. Put it inside. Okay, so we have our funnel. So what we can do, this is what's so cool about the funnel, is I can take I can start at the top, I can put it all inside, and I can shake it, and I can say, all right, are they fed? Is there water? Like, did they sleep? And some is getting through, but there sure is a whole lot of flour in there still. So it makes me think that they still have a basic need that's not being met. Could be that trust factor. It could be the safety. Who knows? But that's where I'm going to sit for a while, and I'm going to explore it more. I'm going to observe more. I'm going to really backtrack it more to really see what's in there. So then I'm going to take it and I'm going to put it in another sifter. So now I'm going to sift it in to this one. I'm going to shake it a little bit. Oh, wow. Now my basic needs are coming through, and I might have to actually get in there and sit with it for a while, work it a little bit, see if I've really met all the basic needs. And the more that I sit with it, the more that I work it, the more that all the basic needs are getting met. And the only thing that's not getting met is the next thing. There is absolutely no rice getting through, and that was the next thing on our funnel. So that's where I'm going to start. That's where I'm going to start exploring. So that's where I'm going to start exploring. I'm going to dump it in here, and I'm going to start seeing if I can get more to come out. And that's where the rest of my basic needs, but now should be the rice. Yeah, the rice is coming out, but it's a little harder to get it to come through. Right? But connection is harder, right? Like, it is hard to identify that connection piece, especially with the new stuff we've just been talking about with connection. So the only thing that's not coming through is the next piece, which would be sensory. Is this helping to visualize how to use the funnel? This one I can only do in little bits. So think about that. Like with sensory, you might take it and you might explore the tactile sense, just a little bit, and then set the rest to the side and say, okay, I'm going to explore it a little more, and I'm going to do proprioceptive. I'm just going to explore that for a little bit. Oh, that all went through. All right, you see how each step I'm getting a little bit more clear, a little bit more clear. So I'm actually going to use the sifted stuff because that's easier, right? So now I'm going to see if there's any avoidance issues there. Oh, there they come. Look at all that. He's avoiding things. That silly kid. All right. Some pop out. Makes us make assumptions way too soon. Right? All right. So now I'm going to see if he has the desires, right? And the only thing left in here is lagging skills. Right? But I've already got one of those skills. You said they'd pop out. So the only thing left is the skill that is being unmet. So now I've already gone through the process all of the rest of the way. Would you guys like to try to explore this on your own? We have got these jars set up for you, and we have common behaviors taken right from your own questions from the coaching community and from the membership. Refusing to do schoolwork, arguing over electronics, won't pick up their toys, pulling the cat's tail, calling the sibling names, and won't sit still. We could make a lot of assumptions about why those behaviors are happening, right? And the truth is that depending on the kid, it's a different place on the funnel. It's a different thing. So that's why all the blog posts, that's why I haven't written on my blog since I've discovered this, because I have a hard time writing a blog post on 3 magical things to get your kids to stop arguing over electronics, because I don't know your kid on the internet. It's not fair for me to tell you 3 magical things to stop arguing, right? So we're going to kind of cheat for you, and we're making up a story, and we're giving you one of the sifters so that you can figure out what we have said is the reason behind this behavior that we've given you. But know that it doesn't mean that every time they argue over electronics, that's what it is. We've just picked the most common one. One of the most common reasons that someone might be arguing over electronics, especially siblings or things like that. Okay.
Was that helpful? I saw a lot of comments of all of this, the demonstration, you like those, and the assumptions that can happen as we are sifting things through, right? And many of you guys said that. Does that help you see that we want to start at the top and we want to go through one bit? And when I say sit with it, what I mean is that could be a week, that could be 2 weeks, where you're just doing ABCs, you're just doing the funnel and the spiral, or you're not doing the funnel, you're just doing the spiral on that one behavior, one thing that we're focusing on. And we're saying, okay, well, let's really look at, is any of this related to basic needs? You're going to do 4 W's, you're going to do the ABCs, you're going to spiral it out, and you're going to make sure that all of the basic needs are being met. And that could take a week, that could take 2 weeks, that could take 3 weeks. And then you're going to move on to the next one. You are going to feel like you're always assuming if you're jumping around. If you're saying, well, could it be basic needs? Maybe. Could it be sensory? Maybe. Could it be desires? Maybe. We talked about yesterday about how this is a science experiment, right? It's the scientific, it's the steps, right? So you're just going to go through that. You're going to say, okay, I am going to connect with my kid. I'm going to understand. I'm going to go through that understanding piece, and then I'm going to make a plan based on what I think it is, the basic need piece. Then I'm going to go back, right? And so, yeah. Kylie's saying, do I track again now that messing upstairs has increased again? Sure. That's a great thing to do, because you're putting it through you can quickly do a behavior funnel if it's something that you feel like you've got under wraps, or just do a quick, day of tracking, or 2 days or 3 days of tracking to see what the patterns are, Kylie, and then run it through that funnel. Right? And sift it and sit with it for as long as you can. But if you're feeling like you're always assuming, it could be because you are jumping, or you're trying to make an answer before you actually know it. It's okay to not know yet. It's okay to keep, to create that plan, to huddle with them, but not know the full reason yet. And sit with basic needs for a while. Make plans around a basic need, and then you're going to reconnect. We talked about that earlier, right? You're going to reconnect, reevaluate, and replan, adjust the plan just a little bit, right? All right, so that brings us to the end of our 4th one. We got another one tomorrow, actually. So lots of fun times. You're going to be seeing me a lot this week. So we've got another one tomorrow. And what I would love is if we could do our closeout. So what is the one word? How are you guys feeling right now? One word. Yay. One word. How are you feeling right now? Justine says, thanks for the awesome study session. Oh, I love it. I love that if it's helping you guys, I love it. Time tomorrow, we're going back to the 3 p.m. Afternoon, right? 3 p.m. afternoon. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot this piece. So I've been doing something for you guys that you guys have liked. And it is, if you remember nothing else from this module, you need to remember this. So I want to go back to that. So in the discovery part, that what you need to remember in discovery, there are 3 things. You're looking at observe, question, unravel. And there's actually a couple caveats. 1, focus with no assumptions. Okay, so these are important reminders, right? So we talked about how the U part is your beliefs, your intentions, your anchors. Connection is communication, belonging, and empathy. Understanding is observation, questioning, and unraveling, right? And then the thing that you have to remember is it's 1 focus, no assumptions. 1 focus, no assumptions. Okay, now your one word. Grateful, supported, clear, thankful, refocused, understood, stop, breathe, anchor. I love it. We're going to squish those together. I love it. Margin, I'm so glad you're here. Kimberly. Okay, Kimberly, we talked about that in yesterday's. So when you are focusing on the other thing, you came in with some strategies. So we're not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. You're going to focus. This is for you digging into that one thing that's wreaking the most havoc. Everything else you can continue the way you were doing, or you can try to kind of apply some of the tools, some of the connection with the other pieces. But your big point is that one focus, right? Refocused. Heather says, I was looking. I'm so glad you're here, Heather. She says she was looking for a refresher. Awesome. No, it's totally okay, Kimberly. It's totally okay. But now it's going to all be there. So you can go back to that if you need to. All right. So now let's do our number one takeaway. Number one takeaway, the thing that you do not want to forget about understand, about discovery 2. What is the one thing you do not want to forget? Lots of typing. Well, one takeaway, one focus, no assumptions. Yes. One focus, no assumptions. And we talked about that yesterday, right? In Discovery 1. Stop, breathe, he needs me. I love that, Heather Huxell. Love it, love it, love it. Anchor. Absolutely. Taking attention away from the trigger, focus on the breathing, ride the storm, and take time for myself afterwards. Oh, Teresa, that is beautiful. Sensory and connection is a process. Yes. Stop, breathe, anchor. That was a really big one for you guys. Stop, breathe, anchor. And guess what? We're going to get into Toolbox tomorrow, but that's your 111. Stop, breathe, anchor. That's your 111 for when you're triggered. Anna, past is that. It's the past. Yes, and it's okay if that still triggers you. But now you get to decide what it does with what you do with the future. Yes, Denise, I can be triggered. It is okay if you react initially. You get to choose where you take it from there, right? Because I don't want anyone feeling guilty that they do get triggered initially. That is going to happen. That is your body. That's your brain trying to protect you. But you get to choose how long you sit there and how long you stay in that place. Awesome. So amazing. Next step. I'd love to hear your next steps, especially if you're still working on finishing strong. I'd love to hear from you guys. How many of you guys are going to use this as your momentum? You're going to head on in and you're going to go listen to some more videos. You're going to listen to the audio. You're going to read the transcripts, whatever it is. Maybe I just popped up in your Facebook feed and you're thinking, there's that weird girl, Ina, again. Oh, making me feel bad because I haven't opened up a lesson. No, if you're hearing this and you're just lurking and you're thinking, I have no idea what they're talking about because they're halfway through and look, I can't even come to the study hall. No, that is your brain telling you all sorts of mess. Use this to just go listen to something while you're going potty. Just go listen to the first lesson while you go potty and then post in the group and say, I did one lesson. What's next? And we're going to tell you what's next after that. What is your next step? Justine says her next step is to reconnect with her 11-year-old on homework and attitude struggle. Fill in some worksheets, Cheryl says. Well, you can fill in Discovery too because we just did it. all of the study halls are in the unit section. I love that. Charmaine says, I am going to go listen to the videos when I take a shower. I love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Love it. Carolyn, that's my good friend Carolyn, says, understanding our triggers and how that affects our responses to our kids. Heather Huxell, next step, I'm going to sit with the funnel. I love it. Kylie, independence workbook with Gracie in mind. I love it. Shower, so I'm prepared for tomorrow. Great, Kimberly. Go and listen while you shower. Kendall, the unit section on Facebook, but we also have a link in the dashboard to the study session. I'll see if Jason can pop in that link into the comments here. It has every study session we've had all on one page. Margin says, I'm surely going to go finish my lessons. Awesome. Just pick the next video, the next lesson, go do that, and you are making forward progress. This is amazing. You guys are amazing. I love it. Denise says, I took a shower while listening to this. Yes, so many times we think I can barely even get time to myself in the bathroom. Okay, take me in the bathroom with you. Take me in the shower with you. That's a really weird thing, and now it's going to be on Searchy maybe. So anyway, but it's fine. It's fine. We're all friends here, right? You guys are amazing. As always, I'd love to hear your feedback. So if this has helped you in any way at all, this Finish Strong or the study sessions or any of those things, if you just want to share how this has helped you, maybe like last week you hadn't even opened up the modules, or maybe you were really unclear on something and this really cleared something up. If you can share that in the comments, it's really helpful for our team to see that this is helpful and this is something that you want us to continue. So thank you so much. We've gotten a lot of feedback from it already. We're seeing so many of you starting to graduate. December 19th, all of you need to have that on your calendar ready to go. You guys are amazing. With that, go forth. You know what I'm going to say. Go forth and conquer your evening or day or next lessons. You guys are awesome. Bye, guys.